Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I hope that you are all safe and sound at your homes. As you know that your online classes has been started and this is your first lecture of physics of 10th standard. So we will take a start from chapter number 11, that is sound. So in this chapter we will discuss that what is sound, how it is produced, transmitted and received, and the characteristics of sound. Dear students, it is probably the first thing we experience when we wake up in the morning, when we hear the birds chirping or our alarm clock or alarm in the mobile bleeping away, when we listen to music or when we hear interesting programs on the radio and television, and at times it may be displeasing in the form of noise. But that is the lively world around us. So, the sound is a disturbance of matter that is transmitted from its source outward. As we have discussed in chapter number 10, that sound waves are longitudinal waves traveling through a medium such as air. And for the production of sound, some disturbance and the vibration is necessary. The examples are the sound waves is created by a vibrating object such as guitar string, the human vocal cords, or the diaphragm of a loudspeaker, or the sound produced by the house bell or school bell, and the buzzing of insects. So, consider a tuning fork for a common device for producing pure musical note. Consists of two metal prongs as you see on your screen, and you can see on page number 29 that these prongs vibrate when struck. Their vibrations disturbs the air near them as shown in the figure in the form of compressions and rarefactions. When the time swings to the right, the molecules in an element of air are forced closer together than normal. Such a region of high molecular density and high air pressure is called compression. When the time swings to the left, the molecules in an element of air to the right of the time spread apart, and the density and the air pressure in their region are lower than the normal. Such a region of reduced density is called rarefactions. The rarefaction itself therefore moves following the previous produced compression. As the tuning fork continues to vibrate, a succession of compressions and rarefactions forms and spread out from it. The second thing is the transmission of sound. Since the sound is a longitudinal mechanical waves, it also requires the transmitting medium. So in tuning fork or the sound produced by the loudspeaker as you see on your screen, that the compressions and rarefactions that were produced in air were used to carry sound. And however, sound can be transmitted through other media such as other gases and even liquids and solids. For example, the children at play may discover that sound travels very easily along a metal fence. So, the sound is traveling in a material other than air. So as you see on your screen that the sound produced by the loudspeaker will be the energy carried by the wave particles from one place to another place and compresses the neighboring particles. So as a result, the compressions and rarefactions will be formed. So nevertheless, sound does not require a material medium for its propagation, and it cannot travel through vacuum. The third thing which is necessary for the uh, production, propagation, and detection of sound is the third thing is detection of sound. So, sound can be detected by various means. Air is one such biological organ. So, air converts the sound waves into perception of hearing, and perception is commonly defined to be awareness through the senses. A typically circular definition of higher level processes in living organisms. So, a person impaired of hearing detects the sound with artificial hearing devices, that is microphone, which detect the sound by converting it into electrical signals. The sound that enters our ear is a pressure wave which sets eardrum into motion. An oscillation of eardrum causes oscillation into the fluid filled in the ear. The motion of the fluid disturbs hair cells with the inner ear, which transmits nerve impulses to the brain with the information that a sound is present. So, as a result, we have the three things which are necessary. We have concluded that three things which are necessary for the production, transmission, and the detection of sound. So, for the production of sound, the vibrating body is necessary. For the transmission of sound, the material medium is necessary. And for the detection of sound, the receiver or the listener is necessary, that is, ear. Now, we will discuss the characteristics of sound. So, there are few characteristics on which one sound can be distinguished from the other. And these characteristics are pitch, number two is loudness, and number third is quality, that is also known as timbre. So we will discuss one by one. The first is pitch. And the definition is the perception of the frequency of a sound is called pitch. Simple in that pitch is the characteristics of sound through which we can distinguish the shrill sound from a grave sound. The pitch of a note depends on the frequency of the sound waves reaching the ear. So the high pitched note has a high frequency and a short wavelength. As you see on your screen, that the first one has the low pitch because it has the less frequency and the long wavelength. But in the second one, the high pitch which have the greater frequency and the shorter wavelength. So we can say that the pitch of the sound is directly proportional to the frequency of the sound. Greater the frequency, higher will be the pitch, and less the frequency, the lower will be the pitch, and greater will be the wavelength. So examples are the sound produced by the man and woman. The man voice has is of low pitch than the woman, because the woman voice has high pitch because of the greater frequency and the shorter wavelength. We can take different examples in our daily life. The second characteristics of sound is the loudness. So the magnitude of the auditory sensation produced by the sound is known as loudness. And loudness of the sound depends upon the amplitude of vibration producing the sound. So first of all, we can define the loudness as that this is the characteristics of sound through which we can differentiate or we can distinguish the faint sound as that of the loud sound. So we can differentiate between the loud and the faint sound. There are different factors on which the loudness depends upon. Number one is the area of the vibrating body. As we know that the larger the area of the vibrating body, the louder will be the sound. So we can say that the loudness of the sound is directly proportional to the area of the vibrating body. For example, the surface area of the school bell is much greater than the surface area of the house bell. Therefore, the school bell produces the louder sound as compared to the house bell. You can take different examples in your daily life. The second factor is the distance from the source of the sound. So it is very clear that farther away the source of the sound from the detector, the smaller the amplitude. And if smaller the amplitude, then fainter will be the sound or the loudness will be less. So it is very clear that greater the distance between the listener and the speaker, the loudness will be less. The third factor is the material through which the sound is traveling. So amplitude of sound waves is different in different materials such as water and air. And we can also say that the amplitude of vibrating body is also another factor on which the loudness depends. That greater the amplitude of vibrating body, greater will be the loudness. As you strike the drum strongly, then the loud sound will be produced. As you cry loudly, then the loud sound will be produced. The third characteristic of sound is the quality and the property of sound by which two sounds of the same loudness and pitch are distinguished from each other. So the same note on different instruments sound different. This is due to the difference in the quality or timbre. So if we can differentiate the sound produced by the two different instruments which are played at the same time with the same frequency, then this property or this characteristic of sound is known as the quality, and it is also known as timbre. And the examples are when a piano and a flute are made to produce sound of the same loudness and pitch, we can easily distinguish between the overall sound from piano and flute, or we can easily distinguish the sound produced by the piano and the flute very easily. So these are the three characteristics of sound: the loudness, pitch, and the quality. I hope that you will understand each and everything very clearly. So, Jazakillah, Allah Hafiz, and take care.